Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather, and happy Wednesday to you. And my thoughts and prayers are with everybody in the path of Hurricane Idalia right now, making landfall this morning as a major hurricane in the Big Bend region of Florida, which is especially vulnerable to storm surge and strong winds. And interestingly enough, a lot of the Gulf Coast has been hit by major hurricanes, especially in the last few years. However, this is a historic event in that the Big Bend area of Florida, that's the area that bends around Appalachia Bay between the Panhandle and the Peninsula, has never until now been hit by a major hurricane, at least not in recorded history since the 1850s. So for these folks, a generational, once in a lifetime storm and very serious situation. And I'm not patting myself on the back for getting this forecast right. It is something I've been anticipating, looking at a lot of weather data, looking at the warm water temperatures. But I really do hope that people heeded the warnings that have been out, because this is about to get extremely bad this morning here for many in the path of this storm. I guess if there is any good news, it's that the worst has avoided Southwest Florida, which was battered so hard last year by Hurricane Ian just 11 months ago. And the worst of it has managed to remain just off of the Tampa Bay coastline, but you're still dealing with coastal flooding and storm surge in those areas, just not the extreme amount of wind we're going to see. So I'm going to talk about what's to be expected here as the storm makes landfall later this morning and then moves inland over the southeast, and then the future of it, which looks a little bit uncertain as we get into next week. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Welcome if you are a first-time guest. If you found me through the Yahoo News article, or if you were invited by friends, please welcome. I am a meteorologist in the Raleigh area. I've been doing this for over 20 years, although I'm relatively new to YouTube. And I had helped out a group called Carolina Weather Authority back in 2020 when we had the record storms, Laura and Delta and Zeta and others, Isaias. And then one of the guys who came up and coming right behind me, Mitch West, has his own YouTube channel with over 50,000 subscribers. And I've watched Mitch grow, and he actually encouraged me to get back on YouTube. He just said, "Hey, Josh, I think you could do really well on YouTube and help a lot of people out." So I met that calling. And anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about Idalia, because obviously my concerns are with everybody in the path of this storm. Storm deepened very quickly. It's now a Category 4 hurricane. It looks like it has stopped intensifying now due to an eyewall replacement, but the storm has grown, and obviously that is a huge concern of mine. It will be making landfall here in the next few hours and then weakening down to a Category 1 hurricane over eastern Georgia here towards this evening, and then weakening to a tropical storm as it leaves the South Carolina coast tonight and tracks parallel to the Carolina coast here tomorrow. And then on Friday, it will pull away from the United States, and we are looking at some uncertainty after that. There's a couple of potential options. Yesterday, a lot more models showing a track that could loop back towards the Bahamas, maybe even towards Florida. Today, some of those models have backed off on that, fortunately, but I'm not going to rule it out at this point yet until we get closer to this time frame. We still don't know for certain, but a greater number of models now threaten Bermuda here with a tropical storm, and there's a small chance this could find a way to become a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane again after landfall, just depending on the forward speed and where it traverses the warmer waters. Now, Hurricane Franklin did churn up a lot of the water in here. It's cooled off some, so there is less fuel available for this storm to strengthen out here. And there'll also be some wind shear, by the way, which is not going to help the storm redevelop very quickly, or at least re-strengthen very quickly. But if anything that I've learned in this business in 20 years is that you can look at all the models in the world, they can all agree, and they can all be wrong. So that is my word of caution to you guys. And obviously, I'm going to have daily videos talking about any changes we have here. But a lot of this is going to focus on the next few days. You'll see from the National Weather Service in Tallahassee, they issued yesterday, this is an unprecedented event. Never have we had a Category 3 plus storm entering the Appalachia Bay in recorded history. Yesterday, that was the last day to be prepared. It's now too late at this point. This is a very vulnerable area, and I'm actually going to show you why here in just a minute. These were the number of total major hurricane strikes by counties up through 2010. Now, Irma upped this by 1 in Collier and Lee County. Ian upped it by 1 across Charlotte County. Michael upped it by 1 across Bay County. And we still, in the county that's going to get hit directly by a major hurricane, have not seen one. Taylor County has yet to see a major hurricane hit. And honestly, I don't think these are fully correct. I think they were hit by Hurricane Michael to the west. So technically there were hurricane force winds in Jefferson and Wakulla counties, but Taylor, which is the most vulnerable county of all, and I'll show you why in a minute, has yet to be hit by a major hurricane. So we are seeing history being made. It's going to leave the only place that has not been hit by a major hurricane being Northeast Florida. And the reason why is the shape of the coast. But if you are in Northeast Florida, this doesn't mean you're never going to see a major hurricane. It just means you've not been hit by one in recorded history, at least for the time being. The ice storms have it here. We've seen ice storms retired almost on an annual basis. This map does not include Hurricane Ian, which was retired last year in 2022. Idalia, I expect, will be retired. And, you know, we may get to the point where the letter I just gets retired altogether, kind of like number 13 on the elevators. You never see the 13th floor if you're going on a hotel. It's a superstitious thing. Maybe the letter I will be next. I don't know. It's not my call. But you can see in just the last 22 years, more than half of the ice storms have been retired, which is a remarkable fact here. Right now, let's talk about what's going on. Two major hurricanes, although Franklin actually is now weakened down to Category 2, but it was a Category 3 at the same time as Idalia. So technically, we had two major hurricanes very close to each other, which is pretty much unheard of. I don't think we've ever seen that, at least these close to each other. We see that in the Pacific all the time, the Western Pacific, but not the Atlantic. Aside from that, we've got a couple of non-impact storms. Tropical Depression 11, which looks like it'll no longer become a tropical storm. Our next storm will probably be this orange area. That would be Jose. And the remnants of Gert. I don't even know what to say about this other than that. I guess the National Hurricane Center is not that busy because they're saying there's at least some chance this could try to redevelop briefly, but I'm not going to worry about it. All right. Here is a look at the track of Hurricane Idalia. You can see the hurricane warning in effect from basically Apalachicola right through this Big Bend region. That is the region here between the Panhandle and the peninsula. And then down across the peninsula, hurricane warnings are in effect all the way down to Manatee County, the Bradenton area here in Florida. Now, what's new is that we now have hurricane warnings for the Georgia coastline and into the low country of South Carolina, including Beaufort County and sneaking up very close to Charleston County, the very western edge there. I think Alwyndaw would be that area. Those areas are under a hurricane warning now, as we are expecting potentially Category 1 type hurricane winds hitting on the eastern side of this storm. So the reason why is that the storm has actually accelerated some and is coming in a little bit quicker, and it'll be moving a little bit faster in the next 12 hours after landfall. After that, the speed is going to slow down some, and that's going to play a huge role in what eventually happens here. Now, if you are south of this hurricane warning area, you're still going to have rough surf through the Jacksonville area, and tropical storm warnings extend all the way down through the Space Coast and also across the southwest coast here. But the forgotten coast of Florida has no longer been forgotten by major hurricanes. They are getting impacted, and the worst of this will be on the east side across Taylor County, and I think it's called Levy or Levi County. I apologize if I said that wrong. Please correct me. Be nice about it. There's a lot of counties in Florida. I'm still learning them all. And then we've got Hurricane Franklin, which has this ginormous eye here that's cleared out, but the storm is weakening over some cooler water, and tropical storm conditions will start spreading over Bermuda here later today, but it's going to be kind of a close call for Bermuda at this point. Not expecting hurricane conditions. And then farther out in the Atlantic, here is our next system, Tropical Depression 11, which may or may not become Tropical Storm Jose. If it doesn't, we've got this next area that could be after it moves past the Cape Verdes here in the Eastern Atlantic, but that's turning away. So no threat to land here. If you like Zoom Earth, I recommend you go check it out. Just a wonderful site. So anyway, let's talk about Idalia for the next 10, 12 minutes or so. This will be a longer video than usual. You can see there's still kind of a very well-defined eye here on the water vapor. You can see it's now turning east of north, and we'll be making landfall in just a couple of hours from when this video's being cut here in the 6 a.m. hour. Probably around 8 a.m. we're looking at that landfall point in eastern Taylor County, and then that track continues off to the north-northeast. And a very large storm, you can see the central dense overcast, that's this bright white area here, has grown and is affecting places like Gainesville and Ocala, and all the way down to Pasco County in Florida, and then all the way back west to Bay County in Florida. So the storm has continued to grow, and because of that, the storm surge threat is going to grow as well. Here's another view, and you can see these storms are very close to each other. There's some spacing in between due to a weak region of high pressure. Weak, but strong enough to keep this system from turning right into southwestern Florida. So those of you that were hit really hard by Ian down in here, fortunately, you're going to avoid the worst of this storm. You're going to get some impact, but you're going to avoid the worst of this storm. So we're going to see this track in this general direction, and actually maybe more of a bend to the right in this direction here. The reason why it's going to bend right, we do have a trough moving through the northeast, and it is going to pick up the circulation of Idalia and turn it to the right. But it is not going to pick it up as quickly as it's going to pick up Franklin over here. Idalia is going to be like a kid who's running late for the bus and is running to try to catch this trough. And I don't think it's going to quite catch it, but there are some things we do need to talk about in the future that will make this forecast more uncertain. Now, Franklin, we are going to see accelerating, passing by to the north of Bermuda here. There actually may be a little bit more of a turn this direction, but it should pass well to the east of Newfoundland still. There'll be some rough surf. And we've got the remains of GERD over here, which have started to flare back up, and it may try to become a depression again or even a tropical storm. Here's Tropical Depression 11. Both of these systems going this direction, and Franklin is going to pick them up, and the wind shear will be killing them. You can see the outflow from Franklin right here is about to very quickly cause a demise in both of these storms over here. Here's our area of high pressure. This is keeping the distance between these two storms. They are not going to combine into a bigger storm. I've seen that online, and it's just not going to happen. It meteorologically is impossible, but it's obviously very concerning to Bermuda to not have just one big storm, but yet another one following in its wake here to be concerned with. Hurricane Idalia strengthened very quickly as water temperatures off of the Florida coast were running 31 to 32 degrees Celsius. That's 88, 89 Fahrenheit. That's a few degrees above average. And the average is at its peak from now through the middle part of September. So it's about as warm as you'll ever see the Gulf of Mexico waters here. And that's why we had such quick intensification from a Category 1 yesterday morning to a Category 4. That kind of intensification has been happening more frequently. We saw it with Hurricane Michael in 2018. We saw it with Hurricane Dorian east of the Bahamas in 2019. We saw it with Hurricane Laura in the Central Gulf in 2020. We saw it with Hurricane Ian last year. I'm sorry, I'm skipping a year. Hurricane Ida 2021. We saw it with Hurricane Ian 2022, and now Hurricane Idalia. Doesn't matter for an El Nino or a La Nina. We're seeing rapidly intensifying hurricanes closer to land than ever before. And if you live in the Gulf Coast region or on the Southeast coast, I think you're aware of the risks that you are going to be involved with. But unfortunately, this is a pattern that I don't see changing anytime soon. The climate has changed. It continues to change. I'm not going to go into the politics behind it. I don't think the reasons that are being given for it are that clear, and I think they're being a bit distorted. But either way, it's still happening, and there's nothing we can do to stop it at this point. The good news here is that the water temperatures west of Bermuda have cooled to 27, 28 Celsius. That's in the low 80s Fahrenheit. That does not support rapid intensification anymore. Hurricane Franklin took a long hot shower here and cooled the waters off. And by the time Idalia gets into here, it's not going to have any hot water left. It'll still be warm, but it won't be hot. So anyway, let's look at Idalia here. You can see the center of circulation, still an eye here that's evident, although it's starting to fill back in. But you can see the area has grown here significantly of the colder cloud tops. You can also see there are thunderstorms that are hitting southwest Florida. These will continue into central Florida throughout the day. But let me pull up my cursor and show you all kind of the central dense overcast. It continues to grow. This area continues to grow. And the core of the storm is going to bring the worst wind into this area here, just to the right of the center. But we're going to continue to see that go well inland into Georgia here as we get later into this morning, into the afternoon hours. Why did Idalia strengthen so quickly? Well, the wind shear dropped off enough yesterday morning for it to form a central core. When it was in the Caribbean, it had too much wind shear out of the north. That wind shear relaxed yesterday. It's actually picked back up today. But the wind shear is now coming in the same direction as the storm motion. So it's kind of like getting a kick in the pants. It's like having a tailwind versus having the headwind a couple days ago. If those of you who are maybe are athletes or have flown or have taken boats out know the difference between the headwind and the tailwind. We had the headwind in the Caribbean that led up yesterday. We didn't have really any wind, at least from a wind shear perspective. Now we've got the tailwind actually coming from the entrance region of a jet streak, and those actually help these storms enhance themselves and strengthen more quickly. And that's why we had a category 1 becoming a 2 in here. We had a 2 becoming a 3 in here, and a 3 becoming a 4 in here. So it doesn't take much for these storms to strengthen, unfortunately. The good news now is that the strengthening trend has stopped. I think the storm has peaked, and it will start to slowly weaken in the next hour or two, and then should more quickly weaken as it accelerates and moves across north central into northeast Florida and southern Georgia. Here is a look at the radar from Radar Omega, looking back to yesterday, and you can see just the well-defined core here. This is back when it was a category 2 becoming a category 3. The eye wall filled in, and then overnight we saw a strengthening category 3. Surface pressures dropped from the 960s into the 950s when they got here. After about 2:30 in the morning, they dropped into the 940s, and winds became stronger, over 120 miles per hour. And then at about 4 to 5 in the morning, we saw it become a category 4 hurricane as the surface pressure dropped down to 940 millibars. And now it's come up a little bit to 942 based on aircraft. You can see a lot of lightning around the eye wall, still a very intense storm. And the track of the storm is now more to the north-northeast. I'm going to run this loop through one more time, and then I'm going to stop it so that you guys can see where the expected track is going to take it. So again, the storm very quickly intensified last night. The pressure dropped 40 millibars in 24 hours, which we're seeing more and more, unfortunately, in the Gulf of Mexico. We saw it with Franklin as well, by the way, 30 mile per hour drop, but still a very intense drop. And so two rapidly intensifying hurricanes within a couple days of each other, one in the Gulf, one in the Southwest Atlantic. And that is a product of much warmer than average water temperatures and low wind shear in both situations. You really need both. So anyway, I'm going to stop this here just after 6 in the morning, Eastern time, 5 in the morning Central when this video is being cut. And, oh, okay, this is current. Well, no, it's not. Maybe the radar and okay, here we go. All right, sorry about that. So you can see now in the last few frames that there is some dry air starting to circulate into the center and kind of a secondary eye wall trying to form here, almost like an eye wall replacement. This has stopped the intensification phase of the storm. It is possible it could weaken back to category 3. A very minor difference between 125 and 130 miles per hour, to be honest with you guys. You're not going to know the difference. The fact that the storm has grown itself means a larger reaching impact. But the storm is going to be making landfall here on the lower Taylor County coast and probably right around Keaton Beach, Fish Creek, and Howell Place. The strongest surge is going to be north and east of the center. Keaton Beach is where my friend Mitch West is right now. He'll be streaming live. I will give you a link so that you can watch it. But that storm surge is going to be very high on the southern and eastern side of the circulation center here, down to Gina, down to Horseshoe Beach, all the way down to Steinhatchee, Florida. We're going to see incredible storm surge here. Basically category 4 storm surge, even if this weakens a little bit to category 3. Ian was a category 5 briefly. That was found after the fact, then weakened back to category 4. Did not stop the storm from causing catastrophic damage. This one's not going to be quite as strong as Ian or as Michael. It's going to be maybe more like a Laura or an Ida, or maybe just a little below that value, but still a very intense storm, category 4 hurricane. So obviously a very big concern. Now, after the storm makes landfall, the eye wall is going to take it over Mayo and over Live Oak. We will see more heavy rain filling in on the western side due to jet stream dynamics. That's going to bring widespread flooding to Perry, Florida. I'm very concerned about you in Perry. That's going to bring widespread flooding up to places like Lee and Madison, Florida, perhaps Live Oak, Florida. And then we will still have a hurricane, a category 2 hurricane, according to this, as it moves across southern parts of Georgia here towards Waycross, Georgia. Valdosta could see category 1 intensity of wind. Homerville, which gets hit by tornadoes all the time, now is likely to get hit by a category 2 hurricane. Waycross is going to have category 1 intense winds. And then as we go further into time here, it looks like the track of the storm is predicted to go right over Savannah and Richmond Hill potentially as a Category 1 hurricane or a strong tropical storm. If you're in Savannah and areas just to the west, I am expecting this to cause widespread power outages and flash flooding right along this I-95 corridor. And then after that, we're going to see the storm track going through Beaufort County, South Carolina, up to about Charleston. Where the storm center goes is critical as to how strong the storm surge will be in the Charleston Harbor, as well as around Edisto Beach and Hilton Head Island and right up the river here. I think that's the Bluffton River. But all of these are likely to see major coastal flooding. And then the storm will be a tropical storm and leaving somewhere here near McClellanville, which was the area that got hit by Hurricane Matthew in 2016 and pretty much got hit by Hurricane Ian for the second time last year. Maybe it was a tropical storm or a Category 1 hurricane. I don't remember, but it was pretty close. And then we see that bend down to the right here and a lot more uncertainty after that. So let's move along more quickly here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on this, but this is where the aircraft has been measuring. You can see the center of the storm. It has not put the 942 on the map, but here's the center of the storm now. So the track continues in this direction, going to hit lower parts of Taylor County. Here's a look at the latest recon data. You can see pressure up a little bit into the low 940s, but still very intense. And the plane is now in the northern part of the eyewall, measuring wind speeds over 100 miles per hour. Looking at the official forecast here, I kind of showed that to you already, but the red is that hurricane warning in parts of Georgia and South Carolina, and then tropical storm warnings all the way up to the Virginia border here, all the way up through Corolla, North Carolina, to the state line with Virginia. Hurricane force wind probabilities, high chance for that all the way into southern Georgia, a low chance for hurricane force winds on Hilton Head Island, as well as Charleston Harbor. Charleston area, you need to be preparing for wind gusts over hurricane intensity due to the fact that we've got still a very quick moving storm. Great flash flood risk exists from the Tallahassee area through Augusta, maybe to Savannah, up to Wilmington, up to near Fayetteville, and over to just east of Greenville. Places like New Bern and Hatteras could be dealing with flash flooding. Tornado watch in effect through 3 in the afternoon. Almost 12 million Americans are in that tornado watch. We're not going to see strong tornadoes, but we will see tornadoes, especially with the heating of the day later this morning as the storm makes landfall. Be prepared for that in Gainesville, Ocala, Jacksonville, Savannah, Georgia. We'll probably see more of these up into South Carolina later in the day today. And then the storm surge forecast. You all can see here that the forecast has grown from 6 to 10 feet to 12 to 16 feet. That's what that category increase has done, from Category 2 to Category 4 in the forecast. And we're seeing some incredible storm surge forecasts here. Even 4 to 6 feet south of Anclot River down to Longboat Key, Tampa Bay, 4 to 6 feet. Even west of the circulation center, Wakulla County, 8 feet of storm surge, 3 to 5 feet down through Apalachicola, and 1 to 3 feet in Mexico Beach, the area that got hit so hard here by Hurricane Michael. 3 to 5 foot storm surge with locally higher amounts in Charleston Harbor and up the Beaufort River. Be prepared for that, or Bluffton River. And all the way down to Volusia County, we could see a foot or more of storm surge, 2 to 4 feet as well over parts of the Outer Banks here into the Ocracoke Inlet and up to the Pamlico and Neuse Rivers as that water gets piled northward. So a very big storm that continues to grow even though it has stopped strengthening. The area that is most vulnerable, and I apologize for this graphic, I blew it up to try to read it to you, but Appalachia Bay is one of the most storm surge prone areas of the United States. The reason why is the shape of the coast and the shallow shelf waters. The water depth here is much shallower, so there's less water deeper in to be pulled from. It's coming from a shallow area, so there's more of a launching point here. That amplifies the surge, and that will bring an area that is going to probably be devastated here by this storm surge here in the next few hours. The future track is still uncertain. We're now seeing, despite what the GFS and other models were trying to do yesterday, we're seeing a change back towards a turn to the north and east. That's not a guarantee, but that's what the models are showing this morning. It could still change. You can see our intensity forecast again, just did not predict this rapid intensification to be as quick as it was. That's not a shock to me at all, but we will see weakening here after 12 hours and down to hurricane intensity here right on through tonight and early tomorrow morning, and then tropical storm intensity and a lot of uncertainty out here, as you might imagine, depending on what happens here. Here's a look at the predicted radar from the HUR model. You can see things are going to move pretty quickly. right into South Carolina, and the storm is going to wind down here quickly in Georgia later this evening. This is 1 in the morning. The heaviest of rain now moves up into North Carolina overnight tonight, and the Outer Banks are going to get hit hard this time tomorrow morning. And then our storm will exit and start slowing down after that. Behind it, a tongue of moisture will bring more scattered showers and storms into central parts of Florida. Some of those could be heavy. The National Blend of Models, here's what it looks like for rain over the next week. Likely to see 5 to 10 inches of rain along this track here. And behind the storm, some heavier showers and storms around the Tampa Bay area up into places like Inverness. Homosassa Springs could see up to 6 inches, lesser amounts in southwest Florida. And this will be more beneficial rain because after the storm leaves, it'll be kind of a more off and on shower and storm typical forecast, but more moisture than we've seen recently. The HAFS shows this storm track. It's underdone on some of these wind gusts. I will show you those, but you can see after the storm leaves, there'll be a lot of wind hitting back over the Outer Banks here tomorrow night into Friday morning. Here's the rain forecast as we head on up, and you can see much of South Carolina, the eastern Midlands, places like Sumter and Florence, over into southeastern North Carolina have the potential to see over 5 inches of rain. Lesser amounts now for Charlotte and Raleigh as it's just trended just a little bit more to the south and east, but places like Johnston County could still see a few inches of rain. Greenville could see a few inches of rain, and heavy amounts for places like New Bern and over towards Emerald Isle and towards the Outer Banks, including Cape Hatteras. Here's a look at the HUR model showing you all where these strong wind gusts are going to be this morning. This is 8 in the morning, and we are going to see things very quickly heading downhill between 8 and 10 here in Taylor and Levy counties in Florida, with wind gusts over 80 miles per hour expected. And then even hurricane force wind gusts possible here into southern parts of Georgia, including Valdosta and Waycross. Even stronger winds here just off the coastline. Let me zoom in and show you all here the next few hours. Here's where the area of the strongest winds is projected to be. Wind gusts just north and west of Savannah could approach 70 miles per hour, and at the coast, they could also get up to 70 to 75 miles per hour, even around Hilton Head Island. If this is a little farther north, if you're on Hilton Head, you're getting intense wind. Even Charleston's getting tropical storm force winds, and so is Myrtle Beach, and so is the Midlands here. Where that core goes can make a huge difference. The reason why it's holding together so well is that the storm grew and that it basically had a strengthening core here of strong winds. Here's a look at the Carolinas. 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. Parts of Brunswick County could see hurricane force wind gusts and certainly tropical storm conditions. And the worst of that wind is going to happen between 6 a.m. tomorrow and about 10 a.m. And then potentially wind gusts approaching hurricane force around Ocracoke and over to Cape Hatteras as well. So don't go to sleep on this if you're in the Outer Banks. Yes, it may just be a tropical storm, but yes, there is a potential for wind gusts to briefly get up to hurricane force. All right, let's look at the future of the storm here. This is the upper level pattern. Here's the trough that is picking up Franklin and kicking it north and east. It's also inducing Idalia to come in this direction. Here's where things have changed. You see this trough in here. Let me circle this for you guys here. This trough is going to pick up Franklin. It will catch the bus and leave. Then a ridge of high pressure will build in. Now what's different is a second piece of the trough, which is actually going to be stronger than modeled a couple days ago. That is going to very much shape where this system goes. As we move this along here, what we will see is here's the trough picking up Franklin. Here's the ridge building in. And then we see some uncertainty here. However, we see another piece of energy behind it moving into New England here on Sunday. So a couple days ago, it looked like a ridge of high pressure would be in place for all of Labor Day weekend over the Northeast. Now that ridge is just a little bit weaker, and there's just enough energy here to induce Idalia to try to slowly turn north and east here behind what's going to be Hurricane Franklin. Interestingly, with Franklin here, the European says it's going to slow down here as this ridge rebuilds. We're going to see a much different look than a few days ago, and Franklin could still be around here in coastal Newfoundland. But here's Idalia now moving away to the east on the European model. GFS model did not show that happening yesterday. Today, it shows it kind of getting stuck in here. It does show the trough, though, building into Quebec here on Saturday and building off of Nova Scotia on Sunday. And that is going to keep the ridge from building in quite as far to the east. And that what may be the saving grace for Florida and the southeast coast next week. So we see a slow moving storm that eventually tries to pull away and eventually gets caught up in the westerlies. Here's what could be Jose after that on September 11th, but it is not going to be a threat to the United States. The ridge of high pressure protects the east. The trough is offshore. That turns things away. The GFS ensemble still says there is still a chance, though, that it misses that second trough and meanders down here east of the Bahamas. So we're not writing it off completely. The Canadian shows there's that chance as well. It also shows a chance of things drifting north towards Atlantic Canada. The European shows a slowing down here and then a track close to Bermuda. And then several ensemble members try to turn it back here towards Nova Scotia. So if this trough gets even stronger and tries to cut off in here, then if we're in Atlantic Canada and Maine, we may not be off the hook from Idalia just yet. This is still extremely uncertain at this point. And there are ensemble members that say it could still turn back towards South Florida. So unfortunately, I would love to say I have more certainty, but anywhere from South Florida to Atlantic Canada and Bermuda need to watch the future of Idalia. The good news is that I don't think it's going to be nearly as strong, although a few ensemble members show it trying to re-intensify here north of Bermuda after that trough pulls away. And then the latest GFS model, which of course is not strong enough, you will see it is backing off on the idea of it coming back towards Florida. It stalls it here south and west of Bermuda on Saturday night and then brings it right over Bermuda on Sunday afternoon and then does another loop back here towards the East Coast. And I didn't even look at this. I'm just pulling it up now. And I'm chuckling because it has a tropical storm coming up towards Cape Cod on the 8th. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way, but, you know, anything's possible. All right, real quick, here's a look at Hurricane Franklin, a massive eye here, but it is not as strong as it was before. 110 mile per hour storm. This is Bermuda over here. Let me circle that for you guys. I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm just laughing at how difficult this has been to try to forecast these systems. Here's Bermuda. Here's the center of Franklin right in here. It's going to continue on this track and pass a couple hundred miles to the north of Bermuda. Here's a look at the radar from Bermuda, and you will see that massive eye on radar, but it's going to be tracking about 200 to 300 kilometers north of the island here tonight, and we'll see tropical storm conditions moving into Bermuda late this morning and into the afternoon, and then conditions slowly improving overnight tonight and first thing tomorrow. Here's that track, tornado or tropical storm warning for Bermuda, and then you can see more of a turn northward, but well east of Newfoundland, at least we hope, with all the models staying a couple hundred kilometers east of Newfoundland at this point. And the intensity forecast weakening down to Category 1 tomorrow, and then close to tropical storm force and becoming extratropical by the weekend. Else in the Atlantic, pretty quiet behind here. This is what we like to see. The remains of Gert and Tropical Depression 11 not going to survive the shear produced by Franklin. And here is our next invest, which could become Tropical Storm Jose towards the weekend. And then another wave behind it we're going to be watching as well. And then let's look at the Pacific, and things are crazy there as well, not just in the Atlantic, but Super Typhoon Saola down to 155 miles per hour, should slowly weaken, but still will be a very intense storm. And it looks like it may come close to Hong Kong, but it will be weakening here on Saturday. The next one behind it is Tropical Storm Haikui, and that unfortunately could threaten Okinawa here as we get to Friday into Friday night, and maybe a bigger threat towards Shanghai as a typhoon coming up the China coast. So China will be dealing with 2 typhoons. The Philippines are going to be licking their wounds here. Taiwan is going to see some rough weather on the southern end of the island, and Okinawa could also see some rough weather here. Here's a look at Saola. It is going to weaken slowly and then weaken more quickly by the time it gets close to Hong Kong. And just a massive eye here, stadium effect. The visible satellite you can see on sunset, just a ginormous eye. This storm, stronger than Franklin and stronger than Idalia. And here is the next system, Saola, and that one is going to get close to Okinawa again, and then maybe taking a run at Shanghai here towards next week. Let me catch my breath, but folks, my thoughts and prayers are with everybody. I really try not to instill fear on people. These are scary situations nonetheless. I try to show you what could happen, what the high end of things could be. But really my goal is just to make sure people are preparing and being prepared for the worst, because things do change on a dime. We're seeing that with Idalia right now. I was predicting this to be a threat as early as last Tuesday. I was projecting it to be a hurricane by Thursday and projecting it to be a major hurricane over the weekend. Unfortunately, those forecasts have turned out to be pretty accurate. Nobody's perfect on this, but it's a tough situation. But all I ask is, if you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing, sharing with your friends. And if you're a returning guest, please consider becoming a member and supporting me. It's not a lot, just $10 a month. And I'll be able to respond more quickly to folks that are paid members and paid subscribers. That helps me to grow my reach. And it just helps me to get the word out a little bit faster here. So really appreciate y'all's time today. Very difficult times we're in, but I want to remind you all that we serve a big God. I'm a Christian man, and God has called me here, given me this gift to be a meteorologist, to forecast here. Nobody's perfect, of course. The only person that's perfect is God, or the only being that's perfect is Jesus Christ. And I just ask you all real quick to be reminded that we need to turn to God in these difficult times. Matthew 6:33-34, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Take therefore no thought for the morrow, for tomorrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. We're facing battles every day. We cannot predict what's going to happen tomorrow, but if we repent and look towards God, then we will be saved eternally through Jesus Christ. I would love to pray for you. I'm praying for everybody in Florida, Georgia, and the Southeast. People I don't know, I am still praying for. I just ask that you guys continue to try to see the light at the end of the tunnel here, and that you continue to take this weather seriously. Please have a safe trip here if you are traveling in the next few days, and please have a wonderful day. I ask that God continues to bless you and bless all of us. Take care.